I think we actually have to say that this is Deafin episode something or other hashy hash string with Cora Sutton because,
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to have you here, Cora. And now the show has officially begun, even though we've been jabbering on for 20 minutes already.
Well,
Yeah,
you had to break the fourth wall
hello.
there. Yeah.
I
Hi
did,
out there.
yeah.
Hi out there,
Sorry.
dear listener. I'm Cora.
Mhm.
I have to state at the beginning, I asked about this because I'm a cautious person. And all these opinions are my own and not my employer's. And so, yeah, just wanted to add that in there.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing to add. We have no idea who you work for. I assume it's not Ray.
No, I do not work for Ray.
Okay.
No.
But no,
Good
no.
thing. That would
Ray
be
works
terrible.
for me.
I
No.
should say, by the way, that I should also say that these are my opinions, not those of my employer. I've never said that before, but I've kind of always assumed that is the case. What about you, Josh?
My opinions are the official position of my employer. And actually, I don't even think my employer knows what closure is. My boss does because I talk about it all the damn time. But no, of course, these are my own opinions that do not represent my employer in any way.
Yeah, and it's kind
It's
of
like a safe harbor, like legal statement. We've never had that before in
I know.
Deafin, actually, Cora.
That's amazing.
I've had to.
That's
Well,
phenomenal.
it's kind of a dangerous time, like for
It is,
trans
yeah.
people in general, and
Yeah.
so I'm trans. That's on everyone. Yeah, I think that's obvious by now. But yeah, and so the risking my
I
job
don't think
is
it's
like,
obvious, by the way.
oh well, all right. Risking my job is a thing I don't want to do right now
Yeah.
because things are pretty bad, and so anything I can do to kind of hedge that is really, really valuable to me. So,
No, totally fair.
Yeah.
You're in the U.S., I take it, Cora, then?
Yeah, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Rust Belt.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Right by Lake Michigan, just north of Chicago.
Do you know Eric lives near there? Eric Normand.
No, actually, yeah, he lives around Madison, doesn't he? Because they have the
Yeah.
Madison meetups, and he goes to it. I'm like, I didn't think
Yeah.
Eric lived there. That's weird. Interesting.
Well, he's
Yeah.
from Nolens, but he moved up to Madison like not long ago, right? Like a couple of
Oh,
years.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Madison's a lovely city. If you ever get a chance to go out there, it is beautiful. It's built on an isthmus. If you know what that is, an isthmus. It's
Is it like Christmas but shorter?
I do know what an isthmus is. It's kind of
Okay.
a peninsula sort of thing, right?
Sort of. It's a tiny strip of land between two bodies of water. So there's these two lakes, Mendota and Monona, and the Capitol is right in the middle of that isthmus, and it's a beautiful Capitol building.
Huh.
And everything kind of swoops up in the city up to this Capitol. The Capitol is the tallest point, and so it kind of, if you look at the layout of the city, it all kinds of comes to this isthmus at a point, and it's like a 4-winged Capitol. It looks like Greco style, like it's gorgeous. It's just kind of a really neat city around there, and it's like a university town and really left-leaning and fun
Nice.
and so much culture and lots of good people. I have so many friends who live there. I'm from the area originally, so it's
Okay.
I love that
Cool.
city a lot.
And where do you live now, you said?
Milwaukee, so it's like
Milwaukee.
an hour and a half drive east,
Right.
or so, give or take. Yeah,
Yeah.
a much
Well, I
larger city,
was-
but
Famous for beer, I think, isn't it, Milwaukee?
Yeah,
famous for
exactly.
beer. Yes, there's
yes.
no shortage of beer here. Let me tell you, that's
Yeah. Beer and brats. That's the Midwest.
Beer and
Midwest
what?
way.
Yeah.
We-
I was running on an isthmus today, and I
Really?
didn't realize it. So a peninsula has water on 3 sides, and an isthmus only has water on 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. You learn all sorts of shit on a closure podcast.
Right, okay.
All right.
Oh,
Lovely.
Merry Isthmus. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about isthmuses and talked about hedging.
I think it's
on
isthmi,
our
isn't
opinions.
it?
Isthmi? Ooh,
The
I like
plural.
that.
It must
I like
be,
it.
right? Or something.
It's
Not
kind
really.
of like
Please.
octopuses versus octopi, isthmuses, isthmusi.
I'm going with Isthmuses. I'm just going to
Is-
be wild out there. Just, take a risk. Live
Isthmuses.
dangerous.
It
Yeah.
is isthmuses, clearly.
It is. Oh, yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm just making shit up. Like, please, nobody at me.
Josh, you're the authority on isthmuses as far as I'm concerned. So
I mean, let's just not be Isthmusist about it.
Oh. So, Cora, anyway, what do
Anyway.
you do over there in Milwaukee then? What's your
Uh,
thing?
What's my thing? Well, I am one of the lucky or cursed people that their hobby is also their job, like their special interest. And so
Uh-huh.
the things I like doing are generally like around programming in general, outside of that as well. And I'm kind of a bit of a novelty seeker, so I like hopping around to subject. And so like
Mhm.
I've ended up with like a really broad range of expertise in my career because of that, just going from thing to thing, and I'm kind of not afraid to work on whatever. So like last year I was focused on making visualizations that became kind of like the centerpiece of this product we are putting out. And
Mhm.
so like making stuff in SVG and Canvas and like geo visualizations
Nice.
and stuff like that. And then this year I've switched my attention over to like OLAP query engines and
As
building
you
on
do.
that
Yeah.
as you do. And so it's just swinging from one to the other. And so I'm working on something right now that's like using Apache data fusion. Have you heard of that?
No.
No.
It's kind of like a toolkit for building a database. It's basically like all the things in a relational data or in a OLAP database that you would want to hook into, like table providers or query planning or
Hmm.
execution planning. And you can hook into, there's all these integration points where you can extend it in your own way. And you can plug into analytical processing and customize it to however you want, like whatever you want it to do. And so it's like this like database toolkit. And it's built such that you can just pick it up and run a query with it right away. Like you don't have to do anything by
Oh,
default.
cool.
By default, it just works. And it uses things like standard formats like Apache Parquet and
Right.
Apache Arrow, and can query all those formats and whatnot. Yeah.
Arrow. I don't like Arrow, so
No,
that's where I get off. No, sorry.
I think
Sorry,
Arrow
data
is so
science
cool.
people.
I think
Like,
Arrow is so
It was
cool.
all going so well, and
So cool.
suddenly he took an arrow to the eye.
oh,
ooh.
Good one.
Yeah, it's King Harold all over again.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have analytical problems, then Arrow is a pain. Yeah, that'd be
I have 99 problems, but analytical problems are not one.
okay. So that's like this would be an annoying thing if you were forced to work with it. But it's
If
so
you're
beautiful
having,
for
yeah. If you're having arrow problems, of course, I feel bad for you. Yeah. Sorry.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I didn't want to misgender you on the air.
Thank
That
you.
would have
Thank
been
you.
shit. So
I appreciate that.
fuck.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Avro. I hate Avro. I love Arrow.
Oh,
Arrow
yeah.
is my favorite thing I've never heard of. Avro, I hate.
Avro. Yeah. Avro's like so they're like,
Garbage.
instead of columnar, it's row based, right? And it's pretty old.
No,
now at this
Avro
point.
is like
It's
it's more of a kind of
schema.
marshalling, unmarshalling kind
Yeah.
of thing where you have to put a schema.
It's
So it's
fucking
basically
terrible.
the idea is it's a bit like it's a bit like JSON,
Yeah.
but it's
Except
binary.
shittier.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is that, like, especially for large volumes of data, you use Avro to
Sure.
squash it right down. So it's
Sure.
unlike the other one is protobuf, but protobuf doesn't
Yeah.
have a schema.
Even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So Avro like has a like schema attached to it, whereas protobuf is just you get the bytes and you work it out from there.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's like it is like an interchange format. You can use it like that, but you could also store stuff in it, and it's row oriented instead of column oriented. Like Arrow and Parquet are column oriented instead of being row oriented, and that's really the difference.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
yeah, and so like Orc is another row based one. CSV is another row based. Like where it's just it's for serializing records of like some kind of array of things into a storage thing, and then being able to get it out later. So
okay,
between
I was
systems
thinking
works
of
too,
like I was thinking of like Avro is just like for one row basically, so it doesn't enforce row or column per se.
Yeah, it's just a
maybe
record.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's more like so you think of an OLTP database like Postgres, right?
Right.
It stores things in rows. So when you update a row, it'll go write that row somewhere, and it'll invalidate the previous one, right? So if you're scanning and you want to use all the columns on those rows, that's really, really useful because you can literally just scan row after row after row and use all of them. But when you have huge amounts of data, it helps to have them oriented like columns. So like you would have several arrays, and so like the first field
turn it around
would have you're basically pivoting it, right? Yeah.
Turn the DB around.
I don't know what that is, but
let me see your queries. Go anyway.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And
turn the beat around. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Good use of the show notes. Sorry.
Turn the beat around. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, DB. Yeah, you upgraded my my song there, right? Sorry, Cora. Anyway, you were saying something important, and I made a stupid joke, and
Oh
now
no, I
off
can't
the
remember what we were talking
trails.
about other than Arrow and Parquet, which is really cool. There's all these new formats that are coming out that are really neat too. There's this the Linux Foundation has this one format that they're working on called Vortex, which is like Parquet on steroids. It's like if you took Parquet and you learned all the lessons from this ancient format at this point,
Oh, nice.
and you make it really, really CPU friendly to like query and to decode and to decompress and whatnot. Like it's kind of beautiful as far as that goes. I mean, that's like the big trick with analytical processing is that everything must be CPU friendly. You'll do duplicate work as long as it takes fewer cycles to process it, like fewer CPU cycles. So like things that you as a human would be like, oh, why would I process that column again if it's already no, if you try to eject that column, that's like branch misprediction, and all of a sudden it flushes its pipelines, and you lose CPU cache, and it slows down. So you just do all these really bananas things to make queries go fast, even duplicate work, just to take fewer cycles. And it's neat. Bends my brain.
Bananas. I love bananas. Yeah, and bananas work is the best work.
It's the best work. I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially double bananas work.
So where does like OLAP end and big data sort of begin, or is it a kind of like continuum?
I think the big difference is, does it fit on one machine or not?
Yeah.
Right, because I know that there's some like the what's it called, data science people in Clojure. They have a whole bunch of things that are made for processing large amounts of data in columns and stuff like this. And I think they have it such that it's using the GPU as well.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. I guess that's probably the future of all of this too.
I think that's mostly for like matrix multiplications and stuff
I
like
was
that, rather than for like searching
or whatever,
stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because with matrix multiplications, obviously you can parallelize the
SIMD instructions,
processing,
single instruction, multiple data. Like that's all the OLAP magic. Like you have one instruction, but you can pile in like 50 different bits of data and do them all at the same time, and that's one cycle to complete all of those multiplications that would have taken 50 times. And it's like, oh god, you can make databases so fast. That's the duplication stuff I was talking about. It's beautiful. Right. It's so cool.
Damn.
Because it's what do they call it? Well, I guess with multiplication, if you do it twice, it can be bad because, you know, that will really fuck your numbers.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it on the same data. You do that. Yeah. The correctness does matter, it turns out. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, for some definition of correctness. So
it's vibes, you know. Vibe. You're just getting vibe data now.
Oh,
that's what you need. God. That's what the next. I would love this. Like, you know, we're talking about new formats.
God.
There's a new format called Vibe. There's got to be. I mean, there isn't, but it would be really funny if there was. You know.
Don't worry, somebody will vibe code it up. You know, 3 seconds after listening to this podcast. Blurg.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about all this AI stuff.
I know how to feel about it. It's fucking shit, and I hate it.
I'm not a big fan.
I'm on record.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a tool that's good at some things, but people are using it for all kinds of really terrible things.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking specifically about LLMs, they're good for extracting stuff from unstructured text, and they're good at predicting the next word or phrase that comes in a blurg of text.
They're fancy Markov chains. Yeah.
Fancy Markov chains. Yeah.
Stochastic parrots.
They are.
Yeah.
Emily M. Bender. I'm making a heart sign, listeners, with my hand.
Yeah. I think the thing they're really good at is getting rid of workers and making a large swathe of people very, very unhappy.
Yeah. So usually we hold off on the shitting on AI until the very end of the show, but I see we've kind of jumped straight into it. So maybe we'll put a pin in how much AI is
Yeah.
garbage and come
Okay.
back to it.
Sure.
But Cora, so we were talking about community, or rather you were,
Yeah.
and I want to kind of go back to that a little bit and hear about how you got into Clojure. And
Sure.
one of the things you said about community was super interesting to me, and it finally answered the question in my head of like, why do we care if Clojure is growing or contracting or whatever?
Yeah.
So I
We
will come
are
back to that point, but now tell us about you and how you got into Clojure and all of that.
so I think this is a common refrain in the Clojure community that like you have a community that's largely senior. You They usually came from somewhere, and usually it's as a backlash against like trauma in some other area. Like
Yeah.
I wrote Ruby for 10 plus years, and that
Mhm.
hurt. Like I came out of that never wanting to touch Ruby again. Now I'll
Oh,
write
wow.
occasional Ruby script,
Huh.
like it's fine, but I will never work in Ruby again. There's just too much trauma
Interesting.
there, and I think people come out of Java and they come to Clojure
Mhm.
and hoping that it'll like rescue them from all of the pain that they've had there. And people
Mhm.
come out of JavaScript and do the same thing, and people come out of all these
Mhm.
communities. There's a lot of like a trauma response. And actually, we were talking earlier about this. I think a lot of the focus on simplicity and correctness is a trauma response to
Mhm.
people
Mm.
prioritizing making it
Right.
slick and easy at the
Right.
cost of simplicity and dealing with all the pain from the fallout of that. And like
Yeah,
Well, I
people are just
mean,
protecting
that's very
themselves.
well said. Yeah,
People
yeah,
want
that
to people want to
is
protect themselves from all that pain, and they
yeah,
want to like save themselves from future heartache of it. So they tenaciously defend it, even though like there is like some sort of synthesis of simple and easy where
yes.
you can make these on ramps for people to get towards where they can appreciate and use simplicity as experts, even if they didn't start out that way. And that's like,
Well,
yeah. And so I
that
think,
I
is
love the idea of closure as a salve for trauma, though.
yeah.
I think that's. I mean, actually, the way you put it like that, I feel like when I listen to Rich Hickey's talks, he's kind of expressing that to some extent.
Oh,
That
totally.
you know,
Totally.
yeah. Now you cast it in that light, it makes a lot of sense.
he's really
That
preaching relief. He's
yeah, yeah,
every
yeah,
time
yeah,
he's up there, he's
exactly.
preaching
Yeah,
relief from the things that like we've been so hurt by in programming. Because programming is so trauma driven. Like every new framework
mm.
where they're just like, we're
Yeah.
not like that other framework. They're really
Yes.
saying, they're
True,
really
true,
saying that
true.
hurt. I don't want us to do that again.
Yeah,
Here's a
yeah.
better way.
And I think also what's happening is that, and again, maybe it's the sort of the trauma aspect is, let's say that, like you said, maybe this is better medicine than that was, But like I think what Rich Hickey was trying to say, and to some extent, other people are trying to say as well when they want to change things is, look, it's not the medicine that's the problem. It's not your dosage. It's really something deeper. It's something we have to deal with the basis of this thing, you know,
Yeah,
and that's painful also
it
to
Mhm.
address that
is.
and to accept it. Um,
Yeah, because
so
you can
yeah,
paper
I mean
over it
that's
with
and that
coping mechanisms, and you just end
Yeah.
up just as controlled by the thing that you left, because you're now not occupying the space that it did on
Right.
purpose because you're afraid of it because it hurt you, and you're not actually
mm,
free from it until you can
mm,
step in back into that space and take the things that are useful to you, the things that you
yeah,
wanna keep,
Yeah.
and use it, like, adaptively wherever you want to use it and not be hurt by it anymore. Like,
mm,
you're never
mm,
actually free from something if you only occupy the spaces it doesn't occupy. It's
Yeah.
still forcing you. You're still being controlled by it. You're never healed then. And so we need to be able to get back to some easy, but not at the expense of the other thing that like has been traditionally sacrificed, the simplicity part of it.
Right.
mm,
We need to be
mm,
able to we need to be
yeah.
able to occupy both and take from both where it's useful to people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think though, I mean, I think it feels to me, I mean, the whole of like, especially Western society these days, is driven by convenience and ease,
yeah.
and it's definitely very
Mhm.
countercultural to say we're not going to value that as highly,
Yeah.
um, you know, because we value this other thing more highly. Now, that's not to say that
Yeah.
you can't get things that are easy, but but it has to be very strictly something that does not come at at the sacrifice of simplicity. And
And I think
and
that's fair. I like that about Clojure, that it's like,
yeah,
okay, simple is the thing we value the most. But I also agree with what, you said, Cora, and what you're
yeah.
getting at, Ray, that we can also have easy as long as we don't make easy at the cost of simplicity. And I think maybe I'm just guessing a little, Cora, from coming from the Ruby world. Ruby, I think, gets that wrong sometimes, and they really
Completely
go
reversed.
all in on easy.
Yeah. And you suffer so much because of the lack of simplicity.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah,
you struggle so hard to get back to it. Like,
It's funny though, isn't it? Because Matt strikes me as a lovely person whose goal was to bring joy to programmers.
yeah,
it was
So
absolutely. And
kind
I
of
think
like,
joyful. Yeah,
I think it depends on what he was reacting to. Like, he was reacting to something too, things that were
yeah,
not
power
joyful and
scared
probably.
programming for
Yeah,
thing, right?
him,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
his is a shape his past experiences shaped what he put into Ruby that was joyful.
hmm,
And so if you look at that, you're like, well, what were his influences? And you can almost see based on the spaces it occupied where he was coming from.
hmm,
Right? You can imagine like, oh, manual memory management probably, where it was like, this is really,
yeah,
really painful.
yeah,
yeah.
Interfaces that like made you jump through hoops in order to do the things you basically want. Like, I just want to iterate over this, make the iteration really, really easy to do. Make like pile into enumerables. That's what Clojure does. Clojure piles everything into enumerables,
yeah,
right?
Mm.
And that's what they did in Ruby too, and it made it really nice for a lot of things. Um, you can see Clojure's reaction to the pain of mutability is that
yeah,
you're just not
yeah,
changing anything, right? You can see Clojure's reaction to the proliferation of things, the proliferation of types, is to just say you have like 3 or 4 types and that's it.
yeah,
And everything operates on those, but you have like 3 or 4 types. Like that's all you get, or however many. It's really not that many.
yeah,
Um, Whereas like other languages say, I'm going to throw a type system on that, and that's how we're going to deal with the proliferation of things.
right.
By the way,
And
I do like that def type is a map. Yeah.
yeah, the old bag of maps here. Yeah.
The bag
Um,
of maps. Yeah,
and you look at like Rust, say for instance, and they deal with the pain of mutability by saying only one thing can
right.
mutate this at any time. Other things
Yeah.
can read it and look at it, but only one
Yeah,
thing can mute, because mutation is still useful, especially for low level languages. It's very,
yeah.
very useful. And we
I
do it
mean,
in Clojure
Datomic.
too.
Yeah, Datomic takes exactly that approach, right? Like we have one thing mutating the thing, and everybody else is just reading the
Yeah.
transactor, I think they call it.
Yeah. And so
Yes.
like you see all of this coping with mutability and trying to understand and hold a system in your head and the proliferation of things and how to control that and make sense of it. And you see like the REPL is, I know it was existing for a very long time before we had this problem or whatever, but long compile cycles, like that's a reaction to long
Mm.
compile
Yeah,
cycles. I want to
yeah,
just be able to like run this immediately and get feedback immediately, because like that long cycle is painful. Like, I wanna get that it right away and see how it actually works.
Yeah, I think the other one is macros, isn't it? Where I think the Lisp macro system was so powerful that it ended up being super easy to essentially put
right.
yourself in a small place
Yeah,
where
Yeah.
yeah,
only the essentially everything was a DSL, you know.
yeah.
And then you're
And
constrained by
that's
the DSL
Exactly.
if you can't eject from it really,
yes.
not easily.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
I think that was the point Nathan made as well in our conversation with him that I thought was really good, because I think about myself 10 years ago, and I did that all the time. The first thing I did was I made a DSL, and then I was fucked.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, like, yeah, I think your point about trauma is like, I mean, it's still really kind of yeah, it's still causing me to think about a lot of things. But I think Rich did a lot of C++, right? So I think like
Yeah.
what you're talking about, you've got your mutation, you've got types everywhere, you've got the STL on top of that. Um,
Mm.
Long compile times, terrible build
Long
systems that
compile
are
times.
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, I mean, that really makes sense to me. But like also on the macro side, it's kind of funny because I got into Clojure through Scheme, And the kind of modern scheme out there is Racket, which
Mhm.
I love Scheme. I love Racket. The Racket community is great as well. But those people love them macros and their hygienic macro system and macro this, macro that. And I'm
So
just
many
like, nah,
languages. Ugh.
give me my functions, please,
Don't
and
they
my
have the thing where you
maps.
can like have like a ton of different languages all running on Racket at the same time? Like they have like
Really?
this file you can annotate. Isn't that the thing with Racket?
That's
Like you
true.
can be
Yeah,
like
you
Oh,
can.
they have
maybe.
like
I don't
sub
know.
languages where you can be like, this
I
file
think it's
is
per file in their case. So
okay.
it's like you put like at the top of the file what language it is. Like it
I
can
mean,
be Scheme or it
using
can be
entire
Lisp or
languages
whatever. Yeah.
as a macro for your language is like the
Yeah.
peak macro form. Like literally I'm writing another language on top of my language to execute as a macro. It's just mind blowing. Just it's
There was a
incredible.
talk about this. It was actually on the London Closurians, and I'm blanking on the gentleman's name now, but I will look it up afterwards. And his experiment was to say, what's a language? Does it matter? And essentially, what he was saying was that, and he demonstrated this ability to run C, Python, and Clojure, I think, and maybe Scheme as well, all in one file, because basically everything was interpreted. So yeah, it's like interpreted or emulated. I can't remember which.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of these things with like Jupyter notebooks, or especially with
Oh
like
yeah.
microservice systems or whatever, where this concept of the language doesn't matter. I mean, maybe we should talk about that a little bit, because
Yeah.
this is something which you often hear: language doesn't
Yeah.
matter, and
Yeah.
I reject that completely. But
Oh no.
maybe you guys don't actually.
I think language matters insofar as we're talking about capabilities. And so certain languages make things easier, make things better.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's really useful. I think
Yeah.
language does matter. Go ahead though, Ray. I just took over.
No, I finished. I was throwing it open. I mean,
Yeah.
I can elucidate my point further, but
Well,
please.
we were talking about
Elaborate.
this earlier, how I wrote a thing for work, how it was moving data between systems. And it was just moving from one Postgres database to the other. It's a Babashka script using the Postgres pod and just executing queries. I tried to write it in TypeScript and I was like, this is so painful. I know that the schema is the same between both. I just want to grab a bag of maps and move the bag of maps to the other system. The language really, really mattered there. I went from I tried to port it to TypeScript after I wrote it in Clojure, and ended up like 6 times as much code. Like it was insane how much code it took compared to what it
Yeah.
was in Clojure. Clojure's really, really like terse. It's really, really tight. And it can like do the bag of map move it between systems thing so well.
And everything's a bag of maps, isn't it? I mean,
It is kind of, isn't it? Yeah. Unless it's a bag of columns, in which case that's yeah.
yeah. I also agree that language does matter. I mean, clearly you can do anything in any language, but the question is like how, I mean, you said trauma. I'm not going to maybe use that word exactly for this, but I'll go with frustration. Like, how long do you want it to take? How frustrated do you want to be while you're doing it? And I think, like,
Yeah.
for me, and I also do think that language matters, or rather, different people like different languages. And I think that's okay because, I have a lot of friends who use Haskell, and yes, I'm still friends with them. It's fine. And they are so convinced that Haskell is the best language. And what I've been trying to get across to them is like, best for you, I will grant you that because your brain probably works in categories. And so Haskell fits your brain really nicely. Mine does not. I have used Haskell. I have used, Scala and other ML languages. And for me, it's just like, no, I need, my brain is squishy. I need closure and just, bag them maps and ship them around.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's impressive. I mean, for me, it was just like, I don't know, just the expressiveness of Clojure and just the direct access to the data is
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, there's something like, bizarrely, there's something incredibly easy about that to me.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
very direct.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I think you can basically do what you want to do exactly, directly, quickly, to the point. It's not a faffing type of language,
No, it's
that's what
not.
I call a type. It's just a faff, because you have to think about, sure, hang on.
Yeah.
Now I have to think about a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
But what does it mean? What does it mean?
Right.
What is the meaning of this data? I don't know what this fucking data means. It doesn't mean shit. Like you say, you just take it from one database to another, or you put it out to a WebSocket or put it out to a web server. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean shit.
Actually, yeah, it's a really good point, right? Because if you're dumping a table full of people and putting it in a JSON file somewhere, like, what does it matter that it's people to you? That just slows you down because it's like, okay, what fields does a person have? Do I have to use these getters and so on? And it's like completely unnecessary for like, and I think that at least my experience working like professionally as a programmer has been most of the time what I'm doing is taking data from over here, transforming it in some trivial way, and then putting it over there. And like Closure is so good at that.
It really
But
is.
also just thinking about, like, since we mentioned people, so what is a person? A person has like, okay, a name, an address.
Yeah,
Put on my philosophy hat. All right.
No, but you have this name. Oh, actually, name and address. No, that's not a person anymore. That's an address. So you need an address type, and you need a person type. So, and then you have a relationship between a person. And so you can one to many. Well, actually, many to many, because many people can live like, oh my God, fuck off. I mean, this is just like everything becomes incredibly like that's stress to me. That's frustration because. And then, okay, if you even settle on something, even if you say, okay, like I'm just going to settle on this way of doing things, then you start building programs around it, and then guess what? Things change. You want to use it in different ways. Yeah. Oh, fuck, okay, but I've settled on these things.
Yeah.
And,
it's a different kind of management.
Am I an idiot for making the wrong decision like 6 months ago or a year ago? Or
yes, Ray, you did not predict the future, therefore. But
what I'm trying to say is that everything is pushed to sort of like you can push things out to the point where like it doesn't matter. It's user data. You want some user data and keep as much of it together as you possibly can until you need to split it out. Exactly. I always think of like everything as like a massive spreadsheet from column A to column Z, and just keep everything in one spreadsheet until you really need to, until someone forces you to say, "Oh, you need two spreadsheets." Like,
totally.
All right,
Can I offer a counter argument to that?
Yeah, of course, please.
Sure. So I really like this argument.
I mean, I pushed it to the absolute extreme that I really believe that, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with it too. The thing is, I believe two things here, which is kind of the hard thing when you.
What?
It's cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Yeah. See you guys.
Like, I don't understand the cases where either of these things actually matter more, and I just tend to use it based on intuition, one versus the other. But like, the type system exists. It's either does it exist in your head, and when you forget about it, you don't know what the data is that you're dealing with anymore, or does it exist in a file so that when you come back to it, you know exactly what the data is because it's been checked. And so, where does the type system exist? And at a certain size of system, it's actually really beneficial to have like specs, for instance, where you define the data and you're like you have some way of describing it in a way that's checkable so that there's value there, right? That's why we have spec in the first place. It's really, really valuable to have like something written down. If I come back and do it in 6 months, I know what I'm dealing with. But like at the same time, there's like an onerousness to defining all of these. And like, what happens if it gets out of sync? And am I actually testing it to see if it got out of sync? Like there's all of these like validation problems. And as soon as you cross system boundaries, how do I make sure the other system's definition stays in sync with this other system's definition? And how do I make sure it just cascades through the system? Afro. Oh my God.
Afro. God. Fuck off.
Hold back.
Ray. I love it.
No, you really don't.
So the counter argument is that like, oh, we should assume that humans are fallible, that we're going to forget,
Yeah.
that we're going to want to be able to reference it somehow, and it's going to be hard to get at later. So if we write it down somewhere that's like executed constantly so that we know that it's correct, then we have a way of like referencing that. Like we have it as like a what do we call it? A prosthesis for our brain, like a way of propping up the frailties of our brain for our future selves.
So I like that. I
Yeah.
like I like you having your cake and eating it too, because that's delicious. So this is one thing I think Ruby got right, and Clojure also got right in two very different ways. But like
Mm.
one thing I loved about Ruby is the idea of duck typing, right? Like,
Mm.
that if you can call this method on it and it does the thing you expect, then just call it whatever type that was. And
Yeah.
again, like coming back to bags of maps, I think the map is the ultimate, duck type, right? Because a
Yeah.
map, to use your spreadsheet analogy, Ray, like the map has all the things in it. It has the
Yeah.
person, it has the car, it has the address, whatever. And then what I really love, one decision that was made in spec that I think is really, really good, though I didn't get it at first and it made me angry, is the fact that you can't have closed maps, right? So you can't have a map
Mm.
with only these three keys. It's a map with these three keys and God knows what else. And I think that was a great design decision, because it really forces you to think about this idea of like, I don't want to constrain myself actually. Like, and this is in keeping with the philosophy of having, 100 functions operate on one data type is better than having one function operate on 100 data types or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really like, and also the idea that you can introduce specs gradually and they don't kind of poison your code base or infect your
Yeah.
code base.
Yeah, it's completely optional. I like that fact that you can just like you say, if there's a certain place where you need to have like certainty about those types
Mhm.
because it crosses a system boundary or because they're long lived or whatever, then okay, yeah, let's put some type information on those things
Yeah.
as and when we kind of like feel the need. But
I
you,
do tend to
but
do that actually. Like,
yeah,
I,
but I
yeah.
think the thing about it is like I think it's just like I think maybe in terms of prosthesis, the question is, do you go in like and get assuming you're in a battle all the time, so you're basically walking around with a suit of armor all of the time, which is
Mhm.
heavy and
Yeah,
protects you,
yeah, yeah.
but it's annoying when you got the toilet, So it's like, you know, it's
Oh
just
my God,
tricky.
Ray.
Oh Lord, that's amazing.
That's
Okay,
incredible.
so moving away from the toilet quickly, and the image of Ray on his fucking armor on the commode on the throne. Hey,
On the
you're on
throne.
a
Oh,
throne. You're wearing your armor.
there you
Anyway,
go.
so Cora, you
Yeah.
mentioned you mentioned trauma and Ruby, and
Yeah.
so did you come to Clojure directly from Ruby? And what was that journey
Yeah.
like?
So
How did
so
you get here?
uh I'm gonna name dropper just
Drop it.
because so are you familiar with Outpace Systems? You know the company?
No,
No.
well, I'm
Okay.
not. No.
All right. It's fine. It was a company in the US, but they're still around, but it's much smaller now. But Brooke Swanson was working there, and I'm like, we were both former students of a teacher at METC Madison, and so we were in this one Slack that's like, students of Eric or whatever. Like, I have a bunch of friends through there and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Nice. Nice.
But Brooke was doing Clojure and then showing me some Clojure. I'm like, that is really cool. And so she kind of sold me on it a little bit, and I started learning it. I'm like, I really like this. Like, getting Clojure is that's an
Yeah.
incredible book.
The
That is an
Karen Meyer
incredible book.
one.
I don't know who
No,
wrote
no,
it
that's
actually.
Russ Olson, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay, okay.
It is an incredible book. It's the pacing is like perfect, and it's like very much like go through a concept. Here's examples in the wild. Here's exercises to do, and you can literally just go piece by piece by piece, and by the end,
Mhm.
you really get it. And it's named really well.
Cool.
Um,
Huh.
And so I learned it through that. And then I made like a maze generator and I applied it Outpace and I got the job working at Outpace, which is really great. And then, the pandemic hit and like I finally came out, which was fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
congrats.
thanks. And so finally got the transition. I mean, that's like a common refrain. People who just didn't, they're like, all right, well, if I'm stuck at home anyway and the world's ending, I'm going to be
All right.
myself. I'm going to go
Holy
be
shit.
myself.
That's fucking awesome, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, we
Yeah.
need
You're just
more
like,
pandemi.
yeah. Well, and it also helped that I was at a place where people are great. All the people from Outpace are like stellar humans. Like I didn't
Nice.
realize how bad of a place I was in before until I
Yeah,
started working with
Right.
them.
yeah.
And I'm like, this is just
Word.
fantastic humans. And so I got to come out and transition and it was
That's
gentle
lovely.
and everyone
Yeah.
was fantastic. And it's a small group and really, really tightly knit. Like we did pair programming 100% of the time, which was a whole different
Yeah.
journey. Like
Beautiful
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
I would
love
recommend
that.
it.
I
It's
love
so
that.
good. So
I
good.
was on a mob team at 2 jobs ago, and a closure mob team anyway, and there was like 4 of us, and the amount of work that we did compared to like these teams with one engineer, one ticket working on Java systems, like it just incomparable.
The throughput's crazy and you build the right thing. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
which
Well,
is
that
a
was the
big
thing,
difference.
right? Like we were definitely slower getting to the PR, but then the review was done. And what I found is once we were in production, we had a ridiculously small number of like bugs in production because
Yep.
4 brains had been looking at this code. And actually, the code doesn't matter. 4 brains had been in the problem space thinking
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
shape of things. And also, we had like very different personalities
Oh, that
uh,
helps. That
in
helps
the
a lot.
team, and that was so good because like I'm a kind of YOLO, tested in production kind of guy. So I need somebody who is like very disciplined and who is like cautious to
Yeah.
hold back some of my excess. But then it's also good that I was kind of dragging him more into the okay, but we do have to actually release this. We have to like
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
it with real stuff. So
Yeah. I feel like that constant, you constantly like sharpen each other. Like you
yeah.
improve each other
Oh
constantly.
yeah.
Like
Mm.
that's where I learned TypeScript too, is like we were
Mhm.
building front ends too. And
Yep.
we decided not closure script for for various reasons.
Mhm.
And so I was pairing full time with this guy, Max, who's one of my dear friends. He's fantastic. And I learned TypeScript from him and I learned React from him. And like, if I hadn't been pairing with someone, number one, I just wouldn't have gotten the TypeScript at all.
Mm.
And number two, like I would not have learned it as well as I did. Like
Right.
he was really
Right.
good at it
Yeah.
and I learned just an incredible amount. And it's interesting. The people that I paired with that I felt like I did the poorest with are actually the people that I like learned the most from. Like the people I had the
Huh.
most clash with, you know what I mean? Like
Huh.
where we're just vastly
Interesting.
different people.
Yeah.
Like I gained an appreciation for different concerns more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And so now I value that in my career. Like if I conflict with somebody, usually like it's a good sign I need to work with them more. Like
Oh yeah.
it's like there's something there that they care about that's meaningfully different
Yes.
and also valuable that I don't appreciate to the same
I
degree.
I love that. I love that. So I live in Sweden, and Swedes are a famously conflict diverse culture.
Mm,
And so one of the things I have to do, I'm a manager as well, so I don't like write code at work anymore. But one of the things I always talk to teams about is like conflict is good and necessary, and you need to surface the conflict as soon as possible and then deal with it in a healthy and honest, genuine way. Because like any relationship, like whether it's with one other person or whether it's with a team or whatever, like any relationship that goes through conflict and comes out the other side is a much stronger
mm,
relationship. So I really
yeah.
like I like what you said there, that when you're having a conflict with the person, that's a good sign. You should lean in and yeah,
Yeah, lean in with empathy to like try to understand what they're concerned about.
as
And
long
then
as they're not
also,
a asshole.
yeah,
That's
there
yeah,
is limits. There absolutely are
yes,
limits where
Yeah.
somebody just
yeah.
doesn't if they're not engaging with good faith,
No,
then
exactly.
there's not a way to
Yes,
broach it. Like you have to both approach it with good faith and
yeah.
empathy.
Good
to try to
faith
see each other's.
is Ray and I's favorite concept, right? Everything has to be done
Absolutely.
in good
And this is the
faith.
thing I was going to say is that, I mean, conflict is fine if in the end of the day you can resolve it amicably, and you can agree to disagree sometimes. But
Yeah.
at a certain point, you have to make a decision. Are we going to write the test? Aren't we going to write the test? Are we going to I don't know. Are we going to spec this? Aren't we going to spec it? There's a certain set of choices you have to make. Are we going to use this library? Aren't we going to use this library? So there has to be some rationale, and then you have to, argue it out, prepare to hash it out, and obviously, you don't want to be having those
Hash it
arguments
out
on
'cause it's
every.
map, right?
Yeah,
Hey, hey,
boom,
hey.
bam. That's the
Look at
key
you.
to good. That's the key to
Yeah.
good values. Anyway, it doesn't
Hash it
matter.
out like a bag of maps. I love it.
Yes.
So can I offer you? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like you can have like conflicts and stuff like this, but it can't be about everything, and it can't be every meeting, every session. It's going to be too tiring, too wearing. So there has to be. I'm all for like differences of opinion. I'm not frankly so keen on conflict. Maybe the words mean different things to me than to you. I don't know.
Yeah,
I find conflict quite difficult to deal with.
I find you quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah, well, I am an absolute pain in the ass. Yeah. So this is all my colleagues like, fucking hell. What does it? Listen to yourself, Ray.
I love that. Can I offer you an analogy that I find really useful, and I think it applies to the closure community too, as far as like continuity and health and whatnot goes. There's always going to be differences in opinion, and like within any organism, there's competing systems that like want the same resources. They want to, but if they don't work together, they suffer, they fall apart, they die. And so if you have an injury, if you have this disagreement that's festering, and you never actually clean it out and resolve whatever caused it, like it gets infected, becomes toxic, it spreads, it doesn't stay in one place, and everyone gets sick. And it becomes a problem where you just have to leave. You have to eject yourself from it in order to cure it, in order to find a place where you can have a healthier relationship. And that analogy also carries over to communities where they have like conflicting views on what should be accomplished. And like if we don't make space for the different views on what need to be accomplished, then they act as sores in the community. And people think that like, oh wow, that community is really bitter. I always hear these people like infighting about these different things, and it's really negative. And people don't want anything to do with it. You end up with like driving people away. And it's like a organism that's more like less like a human body and more like a collection of cells that are independent or something like that, like a lichen or something like that. Or like if you're not bringing in new blood and you're not bringing in new cells, then when the old ones die out, like it loses its vibrancy, it shrinks, it's less able to, like if somebody loses a job and goes somewhere else and starts working with a different language, who's really important to the community, and they stop working on stuff, like it's a huge hit when it's a really small community. Someone passes, God forbid, or whatever. So you need this, like we're all part of this chain of continuity of people. And if we are not careful to plant new trees for the people that are coming up to eat the fruit of, then the things that we're building are ultimately built on nothing. They'll fall apart as soon as we're gone. They'll go away. There's no continuity. You're not part of a chain, a whole that you can be part of, like as a, I don't know, that's like the human condition, like being part of a chain and experiencing that and making sure that each part is well taken care of. It's how to be human.
I think I like that. The other thing that talking about things like Babashka earlier on. I think what's interesting with the Borkyverse, as we're calling it, of course.
I love that.
The Borkyverse.
That guy is fantastic, by the way. I love that guy.
I think it's called
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Enemy of Ray. Friend of the show.
Friend of everyone.
How do you pronounce it? Mikhail?
Mikhail, yeah.
Mikhail? Okay, yeah.
Mikhail Bork, dude. Or actually Mikhail Borkent. But I was speaking to him on Monday, actually.
Name dropping.
Yeah.
Look at
name
you.
drop.
Yes, yeah.
Rubbing elbows with the.
It was a very fun conference, by the way. But we'll put a pin in that. Yeah, what I was going to say was I think he is producing a lot of nice tools. And you have ClojureScript and you have Clojure, and then you have like this Bulkyverse stuff. And it's kind of like nice. It's an ecosystem.
It is.
So all the things,
like a lichen.
there are certain aspects of Clojure that are kind of annoying, that it's like you can't use it to script things very easily,
Right.
a bit slow to start, etc. Now, okay,
Right.
he hasn't left the Clojure system. Quite the opposite. He's very active, but he's made something which acts in concert, but solves that problem, and that's really nice. I feel like
It is.
Conflict is a weird way of saying it. I'm just saying what I was trying to get at was that you can have an ecosystem where certain things that are very close to the trunk of the tree, as it were, they can branch out, but they're still part of the same thing, but they just do slightly different. The tree is a bad example, but do you know what I mean? It's kind of like this
Expanding.
ecosystem. Yeah, expanding ecosystem where
instead of conflicting and trying to take over each other's existing stuff, it's expanding it.
It's mutually. It's like a compatibly. It's a compatibly different thing.
Symbiotic.
Symbiotic. I love that. Yeah.
Like a lichen. No, sorry, that's not like a lichen.
No, lichens are multiple organisms, right? Aren't they?
Wow.
Aren't they multiple types of organisms that come together? I thought. That's
no.
That's why they struggled to grow it in a lab, because they didn't know that it was multiple types of organisms.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I encountered some lichens in the wild today. Quite literally, I was in the wild and there were lichens there. But anyway, so I want to connect the Bork dude and what you were talking about, Cora, about community, because I think the Bork dude, in addition to making really cool symbiotic tools that do attack some of these pain points that Clojure has kind of hand waved away over the years. He, like the newcomer experience to the Borkiverse, is fantastic. He is the most helpful, loveliest guy ever. Like, people will ask a question on a Slack channel and it's been answered 87 times in that Slack channel, and he will totally like answer it and maybe refer somewhere if necessary, but like there's no RTFM, there's no newbie shaming in there. And
not at all.
I just love like the example that he sets, because other people then in those Slack channels, they then also kind of follow the lead of the Bork dude. And there's just a lot of enthusiasm around his tools as well, and I love that.
That's really important too. And one of the things that his tools do, which is like this knock-on effect that I think about it a lot, like you're talking about expanding the realm of the land space of Clojure, right? But also it revitalizes a bunch of things within Clojure as well, because you want to make it Babashka compatible. You want to make it work, or maybe even be built into Babashka. So like all of a sudden they're like making it Graal compatible. And so it's breathing new life into old libraries again, because you want them to work with new things. And so like that knock-on effect is really, really valuable. And that's what I mean about people coming in and building new things and making it approachable to people, because it just breathes new life into all of that. The more people we have contributing this way, the more high quality things we're going to have building, the more jobs we're going to be able to get that do Clojure, the more like everything. It needs to expand in order for us to have a vibrant ecosystem. Otherwise it just stays constrained or collapses. Like those are really the options. And so
didn't you have something to do with Squint at one time, Cora?
I did. I contributed a little bit to that. Just a little bit to that. Nice. A very small part. I really like the idea of it, of that being like a shim over the nastiness of JavaScript to make it less painful. I find myself always wanting in JavaScript to like have the Clojure enumeration methods or functions and whatnot.
Right.
And it's like just nice to have that available when you want to write something. Like it's very, very cool. That is a really cool tool. Cherry is also very awesome, but I think Squint is like nailing on something that like people have wanted for a while. And there's a lot of excitement around it for a bit. I don't know where it's at now, but I do have the t-shirt. So
nice. I think it's still going. It's a slow burn, but it's going.
I've got to check it out, because I've been all in on Skittle. Like I absolutely love Skittle. It's the tastiest candy in the Borkaverse, but I haven't tried Squint or Cherry yet. Yeah,
tasting the rainbow.
I'm here
tasting
all
the bag
week.
of maps at the end of the rainbow. Yeah,
there is a bag of maps at the end of the rainbow.
yeah.
Oh, they're always after me, bag of maps.
Oh my god,
it gets better every time. Love it.
Yes. Our 3 Irish visitors are spinning in their four-leaf clovers.
Now, I do know that that's not a real Irish accent, by the way. Irish listener, or maybe plural. Who knows?
But goodness.
So yeah, this is fascinating. But we were somewhere in your closure adoption stories. So you were working at this lovely company.
This is normally 5 minutes in, Cora, so come on. What's going on? It's been going an hour so far.
I will go on tangents as long as you let me.
Tangents are on Brangent here.
I am definitely. Okay. On Brangent. Oh my God, I love that. Tangents are on Brangent. I'm going to use that. My coworkers are going to cringe. I love it.
Free.
So I use Clojure at Outpace, and so building kind of like an ETL type system at large, and then eventually like some backend more CRUD type stuff. And I really, really enjoyed it. But then when I got out of it, because Outpace was hitting some hard times, and I needed to look for another job, it was just much more difficult to find Clojure jobs that I wanted to work in. Like one of my requirements for a job is it needs to be morally neutral or better. And there's a lot of like finance jobs, which I'm not saying are morally negative, but like for me, I don't feel great about working at it. No, and there's a lot of advertisement jobs, which I don't feel great about working at.
Yeah.
And so like those are the jobs that like were much easier for me to get as a Clojurian. And I was like, well, this other thing is working in green tech, but it's Ruby. And so I went and did Ruby again, which was a mistake. They had layoffs within a year.
Tell me a little about your Ruby trauma, because I'm very interested. I did Ruby myself for a little while, and I felt plenty of the joy. I also felt some of the pain we talked about, but my experience walking away from Ruby is like, oh, that was nice.
So I worked at a company called ZenCoder. It's a YC company.
Yeah, right.
And so video transcoding in the cloud. And so I worked on everything but the transcoding tool. So a lot of like orchestration stuff around like scaling up and down and running stuff on transcoding workers and distributing work to them and whatnot. And doing that in Ruby, especially Ruby 1.8 to start with, was pain. Like when you're running thousands of servers, you run into things you just don't run into otherwise. Like a bit flipped in memory, an ECC memory. How is this possible? I look on disk, it didn't change. Literally like a cosmic ray.
Yeah.
Flipped a bit.
Fault, guys.
Flipped a bit in memory, and when the code was getting executed, it like errored, because you can literally go and look at like if some Ruby code is getting read, and like literally 1 bit is different in memory as it's executing it.
Wild.
And so you'll get it, and you're like, well, I can't debug this. There's nothing to debug here. This is just living in a magnetosphere with a sun pouring radiation at it. Like you can't do anything about it. And
you could build a Dyson sphere and then live outside of the Dyson sphere. Obviously, Cora.
Obviously. Yes, obviously. Yeah, totally. I could live in the far reaches of space, and I'm sure nothing would go wrong there. Yeah, that's fine. Space is famously hospitable.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
But
tiny bit of it, yes.
But then you deal with Rails upgrades in the face of enormous systems that are constantly in motion and constantly getting things developed for it. And this is completely candid, I committed atrocities in Ruby code base. It's gnarly the things you can do in Ruby, because you can monkey bash anything. So what I did, this is my most famous, I'm going to own up to it on the air. And my apologies to anybody working at Bright Cove now. Bright Cove acquired ZenCoder, who has to work on this. But I wrote this thing called Blobit. And the idea was that we have all of these gigantic blobs of text like JSON in Postgres, and Rails just wants to do select star. Like that is its favorite thing to do in the world. And so when you're loading data, it's all select star, and when it loads that data, it's loading a bunch of text. And so every time it goes and writes the row again, it's updating these gigantic text blobs. Everything's expensive about it. So I'm like, hey, what if I wrote an active record abstraction so that it actually stored the blobs in another database, another type of database, React actually, and then it acted just like it's a text field on it. Everywhere that active record hooks in with saving and loading data and whatnot, it'll behave exactly like it. As soon as they access the field, it'll go load it from the key value store. And then when it saves, it'll write it back. If I reserialize it and check it and it's actually changed. And this is all just monkey patching Rails to active record code. So it became like impossible to upgrade anything because of it, because it was all over the system. And that's on me. And I will forever remember that as just don't monkey patch, like write a new thing. Just do the hard work of making the interface simple, because that is insane. I try to make it easy at the expense of simplicity. And that's where the pain happened. And so when I heard that out of Clojure, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly the problem we have. We were also running stuff in parallel a lot, which like on the back end. So there's all this weird mutation and having to write, like, I got really good at writing like forking worker managers with like crazy concurrency stuff using the built-in mutexes and condition variables and monitors and stuff like that. I got really, really good at that. But that's insane. Like to get good at that is so much pain.
At that point, you should be using Erlang. Like just, come on.
You say that, but we actually we rewrote our scheduler in Elixir. We rewrote our
Elixir
scheduler.
is great. I love it so much. I
really
love
cool.
Elixir.
Really cool.
So good.
I do have a problem with any language, and I have the same problem with JavaScript, where like they take one type of concurrency and make it the centerpiece of their language. Because concurrency things like that are tools. So like JavaScript said, everything's a reactor. The whole thing is a reactor. It's just one big reactor. Everything is setting off IO and then waiting for it. And if you block that reactor, it's a problem. But everything's a reactor. You can't escape. And Erlang, the Beam VM, is like everything is an actor. And you can't get around that.
It's a process, Cora. They get angry if you call it the actor.
Yes, it's a process. Yeah. But let's be honest, OTP is that's why everyone's there.
I'm down with OTP. Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me. And I think OTP is beautiful. I think it's wonderful. I was a big fan of React. I learned Erlang because of React, and I thought it was really, really cool. That database out of Basho, for people who don't know, it's a key value store built on the Dynamo paper, essentially, from Amazon that became DynamoDB. And really, really cool database that they built, and they added all kinds of things to it. And they were kind of like the distributed systems cool kid when I was in San Francisco. And I was like, this is like, I'm into this. I want to be part of this clique.
Nice.
But
I think it's flamed out now, hasn't it?
React? It has. But React is actually getting restarted. People are picking it up again and running with it because people are still using it. So
that's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did use
I had high hopes for it. So that's really good news.
Yeah. I mean, and so someone at Bright Cove that I worked with was a big fan of Elixir. And I think it was his, like, this is my trauma. This is my escape. I'm going to an immutable language that has actual concurrency that's not insane.
Yeah.
And this is really great. And it's kind of Ruby-like. So it's like, oh, we can just do this. And I went, I don't even want to go to that. These actor things kind of suck. You have to like memorize OTP's behavior to the degree that like you are an expert in it in order to debug anything. And it's just like, I can't do simple. I can't do simple at that point. And if you're just doing stuff in their web framework, you can make it simple because the framework's taking care of it. But if you have to memorize how all of OTP works and think about like every single nuance when anything goes wrong, it's like, oh my God, that is just insanity to keep all that in your head and try to debug that. It's frustrating. And so I really struggled with it. And I'm like, Clojure, so much more simple. I can use reactors if I want to. I can use actors if I want to. I can build my own things if I want to. I am so much more free and adaptable. And like that's what was enticing to me, was that like I am free with it, but also it addresses all the things that traumatized me about Ruby. And that adaptability is kind of like my mantra sort of with programming. So let's ask the question, do I use Emacs or some other shit?
Oh, you have VJ'd yourself. Nice.
I just VJ'd myself. I'm sorry. I'll let you do it. You can if you want. Yeah.
So Cora, Emacs or some other shit?
Yes. I am an editor anarchist. I use all the editors basically. I use Emacs. I use Vim. Use
we're
IntelliJ.
Editor Marxists here.
Marxists can be anarchists.
Polyamorous by the sound of things.
I use IntelliJ. I use VS Code. I use for different things because they're
Mhm.
good at different things. And so I use the right tool for the thing. And as long as I have Vim key bindings, like I can suffer through
What
and
the
make whatever
fuck?
work.
What?
I know. I
You
use that in
had me
Emacs
until
too.
you said Vim key
Yeah.
bindings.
I
God
know,
damn
I
it.
know. Like they're a curse, right? They're like a terrible curse that you should never inflict on anyone because once you get in that place, then
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
true.
go someplace unless they have it there. Like because my brain thinks in them key bindings. I can't do anything else. It's
Do you
frustrating.
use Dvorak as
I do not.
well? Okay.
No.
You
No.
Thank
I
God.
tried to use
Yeah,
use
but
Dvorak and other things, but I can never get used to it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
HJKL. I mean, come on. It's
Yeah.
like-
And it's so easy to have HJKL. Yeah, there.
yeah.
But I try to use I think Workman or something like at the key layout. No, it was what's the other one? The other really popular one. It's
Azerty.
no, not Azerty. No, not Azerty. It's the other one.
It's quite
can't-
popular in Europe, Azerty.
something
for all the
DH.
jokes, yeah.
Something DH. Like when they switched it, it was
I have
Colmac DH. Like I try to switch to that. That's like a thing that like Mac has built in, like Colmac. Like it's a different
All
key
right,
layout.
okay. Never
Yeah.
heard of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
TIL.
It's really close to QWERTY. They just made it less painful as QWERTY, but I still couldn't get used to it, so I give up.
So you use all the editors. Yeah, I mean, you're right though, Marxists can be anarchist, you know. Like anarchists are Marxist in many cases. Anyway,
many cases,
that's a different show. That's
absolutely.
a different show.
Yeah, we could definitely get into that, but let's not.
I think we should like forget this closure stuff. Let's go.
Let's get into political
hardcore
theory.
political theory. Yeah.
Let's talk about the political theory of AI.
Ooh.
No, I mean I can get into that. I can actually
nicely done.
Yeah,
there's some jujitsu type.
Yeah, I mean it's clearly a way of unseating the last bastion of skilled labor that capital has not been able to like commoditize. Like it's the last bastion of it, and this is their way of hopefully commoditizing it so that they can unseat labor power. That's my opinion. It seems that's why they're so excited about it, because they can just rip down the structures of power that workers have, and like it's literally the last one, and we're all sitting on our hands, reluctant to join unions and fight against this in any way, shape, or form. Like they're trying to take over the creative industry. That's another area where like the creatives had power, and they're trying to throw AI at that too, and just stealing all of our like livelihood, and trying to also simultaneously take away from unskilled labor too. Like people need to work to live. Like that's the unfortunate fact under capitalism. And like, what are you going to do about it if you can't change the system? Like you need to band together and protect each other. Like the only people who are going to save us are each other, not any political system of like we vote in the right person and they're going to save us. It just can't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Like,
yeah, much like fascism, you can't vote out LLMs, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, I mean, this is like very serendipitous in some ways, but in a horrible kind of way. Is I was listening to a book today by Quinn Slobodian, who's doing a kind of three-volume history of neoliberalism, and I was listening to the first one. And yeah, I mean, you know, put it in the show notes, Ray.
Yeah, that sounds intense, but I want to hear about it. Yeah, put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty intense, actually. I must admit, I'm kind of like, I'm into it now, you know, but like this.
What, neoliberalism?
I'm sorry?
The history of it.
I'm into the book. I'm definitely not into neoliberalism. But there was an Austrian economist. It wasn't Hayek. It was a guy called Mises, and he was talking about like how, you know, they have a theory which I was not aware of called the two worlds theory, which is that you should basically have like the nation state, which takes care of politics, and then the global system, which should take care of laws which protect the market.
Yeah.
And his idea, and he just put this out there, was that that having like the same level of global precarity was his goal for neoliberalism.
Yeah,
that's how he perceived like that it will be the very best way to control the markets, and it's kind of like, it was really weird because this is exactly what, Uber and all these like gig
Yeah.
economy things are trying to do. And you're quite right, Cora, because that's what they're trying to do with coding now, is to make it more precarious.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, the classic border argument, right, is you're talking about precarity. Like, capital can move freely across borders. You
Right.
know what can't?
Yes.
People.
Yeah.
And so
Workers can't.
because of that disparity between borders, they can ship things overseas to make it cheaper and then ship it over to the other place and sell it to make a ton of money
Yeah.
because of the different and workers can't move freely in order to like make it more uniform across the globe.
They can also move their HQ to Ireland and pay no corporate tax. So, that's
Right.
cool.
Then there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, after all.
There's the pot of gold we were looking for right next to the bag of mops. Sure it is.
Oh my god.
Wow, the Irish accent keeps on getting worse.
I know.
Oh god.
But no, 100% agree with all of that. There was a good article that just came out in the New York Times by their labor reporter. And actually his last two pieces that I've read anyway have both been on AI. And I think that's great, because I think it's great that labor reporters are looking at AI and making that connection that, like, obviously that's what this is. So this piece is on AI coding tools used at Amazon. And basically, the long and short of it is that, like, Amazon is encouraging people to use AI tools, but not mandating it. But what they're doing is they're effectively setting quotas that are so high that no human being can bang out that much code. So you have the Steve Yegi writing his 20,000 lines a day, and Gene Kim, gushing about how amazing this is. But, like, come on, writing 20,000 lines of code in a day, that's terrible. That's like, we should not be doing that, right? But sorry, to get back to the story. So effectively, like, Amazon is reducing the size of teams by laying people off and not backfilling them. And, they have all of these AI tools there. And, what's happening is, when we had, like, Google workers and Amazon workers, like, 5 years ago, for example, doing collective actions, pushing back against, whatever it was, like, reneging on climate targets, or,
Working on
standing in.
military government.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. The companies actually back down a bit, right? But now, when tech workers are organizing, so some Amazonian, or sorry, I shouldn't use the company lingo. Some Amazon workers were, like, doing a solidarity action for Palestine like a month ago, and they were just, like, all fired, like, immediately, because it's like, okay, you know, you are no longer the labor aristocracy engineers, so fuck off.
And it's hard to do direct action for an online organization. Like
Yeah.
if you could disrupt a factory
Right.
if you and your buddies got together and were putting a protest and you kept deliveries from showing up and you kept the machines from running. You can force things to change. You can like put pressure on them. But if it's online and you don't have access, you can't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
Like how do you actually stand up like and put pressure on businesses as like a collective workforce when they can just fire all of you? There's no power there.
Yeah. It's
And so
super
like
hard.
us sitting on our hands and waiting so long to take collective action and like formalize these things as like industry wide unions is like it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot.
You're literally preaching to the choir, because Ray and I did a
I listened to it.
podcast on organizing tech in Sweden, where we were looking exactly at, the collective action problem. And luckily here we have strong labor protections, so you can't really be fired for, union actions. I mean, you can be, but, like, they have to be pretty sneaky about it.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing you said there was that, oh, yeah. So not only are we sitting on our hands, but in many cases, engineers are, like, eagerly putting their hands on the keyboard and, vibe coding fucking everything. And, like, that's one thing I have to say. Like, I mean, I'm just going to come. I love the Clojure community, but, like, the Clojure conferences I've been to over the last 5 years, like, maybe 5 years ago, it was all machine learning. And, whatever, machine learning, I don't have a huge problem with like the kind of old school machine learning, because
Like
typically
linear
people were,
regression stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Typically people were talking about models trained to solve a specific problem, right? So that's something different. You know, it was a little too much for me because I wasn't really into ML. So like every closure conference having 5 talks on ML was a little bit like, oh, come on, let's do something different. But, you know, now just like having these LLM talks at like every closure conference and in every closure space, like it's just, it infuriates me, to be honest. Like I see people that I respect just like going so wild about this stuff and being like, this is the best ever. And then, like, at the best, what they say at the very end of their talk or their blog post or whatever is, oh, and of course there are problems, but, and then they never expand on that. And like, I'm getting a little furious just talking about it and thinking about it now. So I'll shut up and let somebody else say something.
I think about like it's like sheep celebrating the advent of wolves. It's like we're celebrating the very thing that will like be our
Yeah.
downfall. Like it's so insane to me.
As workers, I just want to clarify, you're not talking about the vengeful AI god that's going to destroy us all.
Okay, let's get into Zizians and rationalists and
oh, yes,
whatnot.
please. Yes,
yeah,
please.
Okay. So, what do y'all know about this?
Quite a lot. Yeah.
Quite a lot. Okay, I know quite a lot.
Maybe
too.
it's the audience.
Tragically.
Okay, for the audience,
stuff. Yeah.
There was a very in a small niche, I guess, famous work of Harry Potter fan fiction that kicked off the rationalist movement. It's like Harry Potter and the methods of rationality or something like that.
Holy
if you go find it, it's like 100 chapters now.
This will not be in the show notes, but
okay,
fuck those people, but still.
So it kicked off this thing. It was written by this dude who started the website Less Wrong. And so all of these people kind of are getting high on their own supply, thinking about like pretending that there's never been a thinker before in the universe, and ignoring all of social science and trying to think of everything from quote unquote first principles.
Right. Well, Rene Descartes did the same thing, but I guess they rejected him too, right?
They're like, I think, therefore I get VC. And
cogito ergo sum of money.
Yes, exactly.
oh my god.
Oh damn, Ray, that was good.
This is like mob programming here. We're like
we're vibing on the puns.
But anyway, the rationalists,
I'm quite pleased with that one myself, actually.
So eventually they came up with this. This actually came out of a niche community that writes like these like a horror encyclopedia essentially online. They came up with this idea of info hazards. So information you learn, where if you learn it, it's hazardous to you because you can get into like this thought trap, or like you learn it and it curses you or something like that. And so there's this famous thing called something basilisk. What's the thing called? Basilisk, where it's like if AI gets created, it could punish you forever, or an avatar of you forever, if you stood in the way of AI coming about or did not contribute as much as you could for AI coming about as possible.
Exactly. So we're all three fucked. We are totally tortured forever in some transhuman fucking cloud.
And so these people literally do Pascal's wager. They do Pascal's wager with an AI where they're like, well, I got to bet on the fact that like, if I guess I got to dedicate myself to this just in case it's true and just in case it happens for my safety. And so you have all these people that believe that there's going to be like this AI savior then too. So like, it's very much just Christian theology. I'm sorry for anybody's Christian out there. It's really Christian theology. It's the stick and the carrot, where if you stand against this, you're going to be punished forever. And if you contribute to this, there's this utopia for you that's coming. It's literally just a reification of this. And if these motherfuckers would just study theology for like 5 fucking seconds, they would see through this, but they don't.
But that's an info hazard, Cora.
It's an info hazard, right?
Yeah, but also like transhumanism is basically essentially saying that we can live in a computer and have a utopia there.
Yeah,
which is essentially just heaven.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, again, the kind of the concept of all of these things are basically just kind of Christian theology wrapped up in a
reified
sort of digital
in a different way.
situation.
Yeah.
So, I think the thing about it is that I was listening to something today, and it was about Naomi Klein. I want to give her a shout out.
Yeah.
And she was saying that, like, people talk about AI hallucinations, but actually all of these things that the rationalists and the transhumanists and the effective altruists and long-termists, they're all thinking about, those are the true hallucinations.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yep. They're like, we need to become a multiple planetary species in case it wipes it out. So instead of solving the problem,
right,
they want to give an escape hatch so they don't have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so they can basically leave everybody else behind to die. And they think that they're not just going to recreate. I wish people would understand that progress does not happen for humans. It happens in technology. It happens in society. It does not happen for humans. Humans are the same. Everywhere you go, it takes so long for humans to evolve. We do not progress. Like, there is no progression. There is no high summit we're going to as humans where we're going to be gods. It's literally, we just are doing the thing that humans always do, which is just recreate our societies over and over, reify it over and over again, and have an accumulation of stuff. And we accumulate knowledge, we accumulate goods, we accumulate technology, we accumulate humans, even just procreating, taking over, we accumulate land, we accumulate all these things constantly. We're just doing the same things humans have always ever done. And there's no progress. We're not changing. So if they go off to another planet, they're going to have exactly the same problem. If they had the technology to get to another planet, can you imagine the whole human urge to self-destruction, like being like in a multi solar humanity? If you can send something at FTL to another star, you can just ram it into the other planet and instantly end it. You don't need a nuke. You just need speed.
You've watched
you just
Star Wars.
Throw some Nietzsche death drive at us or what?
It's just,
we're getting philosophical.
It's just, if you want to solve it, you solve it here. There is no planet B. There is no plan B.
But the funny thing is that you come back to trauma again, because this is displacement behavior.
It is.
And we are rats chewing off our own tails at this point.
Yes. Yeah. We feel like we got our leg in the trap and we're ready to chew it off, even though it's going to hurt us because we think it's going to save us, when really we're just going to bleed out.
And the outrageous thing is we fucking know how to disarm the trap. We know how to do it, but we are still wanting to chew our leg off anyway because
it requires losing power and control. Yeah. And all these people that got wealthy doing all these things, but they want their power and their control, and they don't want to give it up because they don't trust anybody else to do the right thing.
But don't you also think that there's kind of not enough people hurting in the West
here? Yeah.
Well, they're starting to.
Yeah.
No, it was great, I mean, but that's essentially the thing that's happened, in the last 50, 100 years, is that, well, let's say post-war, post-Second World War, things got a bit better, there was better living standards, people got used to a relatively high standard of living. And for very many people, that is still, sufficiently high that they don't feel like that's threatened. But maybe in this, especially with Trump, it feels like that's turning, it's changing, it feels like people in the whole of America are now feeling, not everyone over there, obviously, because a lot of people voted for him and still probably believe in the project, but it feels like there's enough people who are turning their back on that project and thinking, holy shit, this is actually really pretty damaging. And I think, unfortunately, people getting hurt is probably going to be the way that things change, which I don't like to see it. I really don't.
No.
Yeah.
Oof, man, I kind of want to bring us back from the edge and
please
say something nice about closure before we.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this has gone okay.
No,
we definitely we moved away from AI to
rationalist and
not really though, right? Not really. All right. So anyway, to bring us back from the brink and to end on a high note, Cora, we've been talking for, I don't know, 45 to 50 hours now, and it's been gripping. But what would you like to leave us with?
Oh,
And you have as much time as you want, so don't feel any pressure.
I would say think about being pro-social. Like, it's really easy to be antisocial. It just means like laws in general, I think are good, not because I think that the state should be punishing people, but because usually it reflects like a pro-social thing. Like, don't be an asshole to your neighbors. Don't hurt other people. Like think about how to be pro-social in a programming sense. Like, what steps can you take that would like increase this like the well-being of the different varieties of people that are in any given community. People are beginners, people that are really experienced, and how do we who is underrepresented? The people that are most able to make changes in these communities are the people that are least able to see the needs of the people that are the beginners. And so like there's necessarily a blind spot. And so you really have to think hard about it and work hard at it in order to take care of that, in order to make sure there's continuity from you to the next generation. And to yeah, like just think about how to be pro-social and how to help others. And that's why I love like the gratitude channel. That's why I love like the different ways that we're leaning into helping each other with our projects and whatnot. Like that's
Yeah.
everything. We need more of that.
Would you mind maybe expanding a little on like what you're doing? Because I know you have a lot of kind of community building efforts that you're in, right? And I think maybe that would be a wonderful way to wash the taste of AI out of our mouths.
Yeah. So I've been mostly focusing in it on like a work sense, like mentoring people like at work and trying to help like bring opportunities to people and to mentor and to share things. I haven't been doing so much in the Clojure community lately, but like when I was more involved with the Clojure community, I was doing things like we didn't have individual doc set search in CLJ doc. And I'm like, that seems nuts. If I'm somebody who's new trying to find something, I don't know even the first place to begin. Like, how do we make this easier for beginners? I wanted to contribute to Calva because Calva is like what everybody's using. They're using VS Code. Like the better that can be for beginners, for people to get into, the easier everyone's going to have. Easier time everyone's going to have in the community. Because honestly, I love Emacs. Like I use Emacs as like my note taking and different programming for Clojure work. But like that's a steep learning curve. That is a barrier to entry for people who are beginners because people are just not using it right now. And so like the more we can make it accessible to meet people where they are in a pro-social way to help ensure that like we are not the end of our community, that we're just the beginning of it. Like that's how to be a pro-social, a good citizen of the world and a good citizen of the people around you.
I think that's a great message.
Yeah, it is. So should
My name's Ray, and I endorse this message.
Yeah, totally. Honestly, I think we should maybe end on that one because I can't think of anything better to say than what you just did.
Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on here. This has been so great.
Yeah, it's been
I hope
wonderful.
we can do it again sometime. And yeah, it's been lovely. It's nice to put voices with faces and all that. So cool.
Totally.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DefN. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page. And you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at DefN Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.
Set a reminder for 2 hours from now to make a cover art of Rich Hickey as a leprechaun.